All right, so I'd like to, I guess we do that, right? So I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission to order. And first order of business, introduce Planning Commission members and staff. To my immediate left is Commissioner Bob Bailey. Farther on around the way is Commissioner Matt Mitchell. I'm Hal Hutchinson. Staff is Jason Gutierrez, the Development Department Director. Trish Chavis, the planner. Charmaine Reed, Deputy County Attorney. All right, this commission is an advisory board of the Natrona County Commissioners. Our decisions are subject to approval, conditional approval, denial, or modification by the Board of County Commissioners. For each application on the agenda, we will hold an official public hearing. The hearings are recorded, and there will be written minutes of this meeting. After this commission holds a public hearing, unless an application is tabled or withdrawn, the Board of County Commissioners will hold another public hearing for the application. Tonight, everyone will have an opportunity to address the commission. First, those in favor of an application may address the commission. Then, those opposed to the application may address the commission. Finally, the applicant may give a brief rebuttal. When the chair recognizes you, please come to the podium and clearly state your name and address before giving your comments. This is not a forum for public outcry or speaking from the audience. You must be recognized by the chair before addressing the commission. If a person's conduct is out of order, the chair may give the person a warning. If the person continues to conduct or continues the conduct, or if conduct is extremely out of order, the person may be directed to leave immediately. So with that, our first item on the agenda is consideration of the October 13th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bailey.
I move approval of the September 8th, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes with one correction that I believe should be made. And I believe under item 3 that we approved both of those towers from the 65 to 85, but I believe that we approved up to 100 feet. So if the staff could check our minutes back then and make that appropriate change, I move approval with that change.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
All right, is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes of the October 13th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes with the added provision that the minutes be revised to indicate a 100-foot tower height? Does that sound correct, Mr. Bailey?
I believe that's true, yes. Oh, yes.
All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, the second item on the agenda is conditional use permit 20-12. And that is a request by Pacific Corp doing business as Rocky Mountain Power to permit the Gateway West Segment D1 transmission line project in the southeastern portion of Natrona County. Jason, we have a staff report.
So tonight we have conditional use permit 20-12, and this, oh, thank you. There we go. Can you hear me now? So this is an application by Pacific Corp doing business as Rocky Mountain Power. So the applicant is proposing to construct, operate, and maintain approximately 118 miles worth of overhead transmission lines, and it'll be through the southeast corner of Natrona County. This also includes portions through Converse County and Carbon County, and currently those counties are both doing the same process that we are as far as going through the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners for approval. The project's purpose is to provide existing and new renewable generation sources to meet the growing customer needs, ease transmission congestion, and improve the flow of electricity throughout the western U.S. The project location and all surrounding properties are zoned RAM, which is our ranching, agricultural, and mining. The project crosses private lands, federal lands administered by the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service, as well as state lands. Approximately 195 new transmission line structures will be installed in Natrona County alone. So this right here is a map that shows coming down from Converse County through Natrona County and going into Carbon County. And in your packet, there were broken out into 4 maps where you could get into specific detail on those locations and what that looks like. Oops. So when we review the conditional use permits, we have criteria that has to have showings for each of them. And going through this one, will granting the conditional use permit contribute to the overburdening of county services? The staff's proposed finding of fact is the conditional use permit will not contribute to an overburdening of county services. The applicant will work with Natrona County Road and Bridge to obtain applicable required permits for county road right-of-way, utilities, construction. The applicant has met or spoken with the superintendent of Road and Bridge and will be in constant contact with them if they're using the county roads. The applicant has also agreed to have their construction contractors do pre-existing road conditions, and then when construction is complete, take it back to those the pre-existing conditions. So they will fix those back up. Will granting the CUP cause undue traffic, parking, population density, or environmental problems? A short snip out of the application, the project will have a dedicated access road network for all construction-related traffic. Existing public roads and highways will provide primary access for personnel, materials, and equipment to the project area. One of the things I would like to mention on this one too is the application was sent to YDOT to get any of their comments that they had. They did add that they would like any new approaches to be permitted through the state if it's a state road, which is part of the requirements at the end that you'll see. So the proposed finding of fact is Rocky Mountain Power will minimize the effects of project construction activities on public transportation and traffic and provide for public safety. The project has been developed and sited to minimize environmental impacts through compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or the NEPA process. So they followed through with NEPA. And as a side note, and I think I might mention it in here in a little bit, is they are not required to do industrial siting. And I included the letter in your packet as well. Will granting the CUP impair the use of adjacent property or alter the character of the neighborhood? Proposed finding of fact. The project is compatible with the existing and future land uses. The general area in which the project is situated is in the ranching, agricultural, and mining zoning district. Transmission line development is an appropriate use of land in the RAM district and will not change the character of the district. The RAM district is intended for predominantly rural and agricultural activities, and within the right-of-ways of Rocky Mountain Power, they can still conduct those activities. The animals can still graze. There's nothing that would change in that characteristic. Will granting the CUP detrimentally affect the public health, safety, and welfare, or nullify the intent of the zoning resolution or the development plan? The application was sent to Natrona County Road and Bridge, YDOT, Natrona County International Airport, Wyoming Game and Fish, and the Natrona County Fire Protection District. YDOT has requested the applicant to obtain the utility license for each highway crossing and access permit for any new roads on state highways. Wyoming Game and Fish recommends Rocky Mountain Power consult with BLM and U.S. Forest Service on new power line on federal surface that goes up and over the Deer Creek Range. And they want that discussion on who's going to cross that road if it's open and work out the details on that part. In order to reduce the impacts to wildlife that may result in increased access, the department recommends new roads created within this portion of the corridor closed to motorized vehicles, vehicle use by the public, or allow public use for game retrieval only. And it goes into further detail in the letter provided by Game and Fish in your packet. There were no concerns from the Natrona County International Airport, and there was no comments received from Natrona County Fire. The project will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. The project, sited in rural, undeveloped areas zoned for agricultural purposes, is compatible with the intent of both the land use plan and the zoning resolution. Oop. Whoop. There we go. So, public comment, staff sent the public notice to 13 adjacent neighbors, and to date, we have not received any comments. I did receive a couple calls, and I think some of the adjacent neighbors may be here tonight. So, I also, again, repeated thank you, the other entities that I sent the application to. So, proposed motion, staff would recommend that this application be approved with 5 additional conditions, and those come from the request from YDOT for an access permit, Rocky Mountain Power Consulting with the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service as provided by Game and Fish. The third one is also provided by Game and Fish, complete a density disturbance calculation tool analysis for construction activity occurring in sage-grouse core areas as part of the permitting process. So that would happen later on as they get towards construction. Number 4 would work with Natrona County Road and Bridge to obtain applicable required permits for county road right-of-way access, utilities, installation, and oversized vehicles. And number 5, before using county roads, have that construction contractor document those conditions prior to so that they can be returned to that condition when they're completed. And staff would also recommend that you reference all findings of fact if you recommend approval. And that is all I have.
Any questions for staff?
I just had a little question on that industrial siding because I'm not familiar with it. So it seems like there's a monetary limit to that. So I guess my question is that, if they were reconstructing the whole power line in Wyoming, but they were doing it in parts, but those small parts didn't exceed that limit, but the entire project did. See, I just wonder how that is interpreted, or whether you may not know how that's interpreted.
I do not know, but we can ask the applicant.
I'm just curious, because would that then entail like more things that they would have to do as far as, because if they're redoing the power lines, but they do it in every 2 years and it never exceeds the amount, but the total project would exceed that amount. But I assume since it was the Attorney General's office that they're probably familiar with how that'd be my only question is how they determine that monetary amount and whether it's based on the complete project or just the parts that they work on as they go through it. That's all I had.
Okay.
Mr. Bailey, any questions?
No, I have none.
Trish, was just like a clarification. I may have misheard, but on item number 2, Rocky Mountain Power Consult with BLM, and I think you mentioned Game and Fish, but is that that's Forest Service, right? You mentioned Game and Fish.
Yes, so number 2 and number 3 are both recommendations by Game and Fish. So they recommend that Rocky Mountain Power consult with BLM and the Forest Service on the power line located and going through the Deer Creek Range.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 2 and 3 are both recommendations by Wyoming Game and Fish.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's Forest Service versus BLM when they come over the top and drop down on the south side of the Deer Creek Range, and then it goes into BLM. So that's probably why they want to coordinate with Forest Service there.
Thank you. All right, so what do we do now? It's time for a public hearing? So we're going to open a public hearing for conditional use permit 20-12 for the Gateway West segment. And to do this, I guess we ask first for all in favor of, or anyone in favor of the conditional use permit to please come forward, give your name and address. Anyone in the audience? So that was one time, right? All right, so second time, anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of conditional use permit 20-12? Third and last time, anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of conditional use permit 20-12? All right, I guess I should also ask, is there someone with Rocky Mountain Power or Pacific here to address the project? Yes. Did you want to come up and give your... I should have asked that first before I started asking other people to come up. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Rod Fisher. I'm the Principal Project Manager for Pacific Corp and Rocky Mountain Power's Gateway Transmission Program. I've held that position since March of 2007 when we announced an aggressive transmission expansion program across our 6-state territory in the West. Everything we do is about serving our customers. We serve 1.9 million customers across 6 states. We have about 140,000 customers here in Wyoming. So we're very pleased to finally be getting to the point where we're moving forward with this portion of Gateway West. Gateway West was launched back in spring of 2007. We filed an application with the BLM and the Forest Service, and it was a 1,000-mile project. So went from Glen Rock, Wyoming at our Dave Johnston power plant all the way to southeast of Boise in Idaho. And our project is segmented in that EIS that took almost 8 years to get a partial decision on the Wyoming portion, but it contemplated 10 different unique segments. And that gets to Commissioner Mitchell's question about the industrial siting permit. We aren't allowed in the industrial siting environment to segment the project and break it up into phases that don't meet their threshold. This project was not fully contemplated until late last year in part of our planning process. We did just receive our industrial siting permit for the Gateway South project, which starts down at Medicine Bow and ties into work that we're just completing right now. But we're very proud to be investing roughly $6 billion in the state of Wyoming with the work that we've got under almost completed. That's roughly over $3.1 billion, and we're looking at doing more than that here in this next tranche to have in service by the end of 2024. And this Gateway West Segment D1 project is a portion of that. We did meet with the Industrial Siting Division and the Attorney General's Office to determine if they had jurisdiction, and given the cost of the project, the estimated material cost, it did not come close to meeting their threshold. So that's why we included the letter in our application to that fact. So I do want to, I mentioned briefly, and Trish mentioned that we went through NEPA. It was quite a fascinating journey. It took us over 12 years to get all of Gateway West finally permitted from BLM and the Forest Service. But we worked with the landowners starting in 2007 with public scoping with the BLM. We had many meetings across the 1,000 miles. We've had several here over the years in Natrona County. And I think we've had a good working relationship with the landowners that we're crossing across the project. So I've spoken to a couple of them that are here tonight, and we appreciate our relationship with them, and they've been on this long journey with us. And it's finally to a point where we're hoping to actually build the project, and we're at the point where we've been doing significant survey work and resource surveys to meet our BLM requirements and the Forest Service requirements over the last 2 years. We'll continue that through this next season as well to get their NTPs, notice to proceed, to build the project. we're at the point where in conducting all of those surveys, we're preparing, title documents and formal exhibits that will be sent out to all of the landowners shortly. We've got a contract right-of-way agent that's engaged working with each of those landowners. And, we'll continue to work with them as we finalize easement negotiations and exact placement of access roads and those kind of things. And to the point on the condition from Game and Fish on meeting with BLM and the Forest Service over the Deer Creek Range, it's all about controlling access, and that's something that we typically do as well. And landowners, if there are private landowners in that area, we'll coordinate with them as well. But we want to be good stewards of the environment and the land. I do have a bit of late-breaking news. In our application, we anticipated starting construction here this next, as early as spring, more likely in summer. And we just received a scheduling order from the Wyoming Public Service Commission, who regulates us as an electric utility. And they set forth a schedule that won't allow us to start construction next year. So it's probably going to push out not to start construction until the spring of 2022. So, we have to get that regulatory approval as well, and we'll work through that process to get that authorization. So that then, our application contemplated an in-service date for this segment by the end of 2023. That now shifts to the end of 2024. And I understand that Natrona County has ordinances and things in your zoning requirements that keep a conditional use permit valid for a year, without needing to be extended. And so I might ask, if this commission deems it appropriate to grant the conditional use permit to have construction start no later than the end of 2022. And with that, unless there are any other questions, we're here to, number one, thanks Trish and Jason for their help and support in getting us connected with Mike Hagler, the County Road and Bridge Superintendent. We had a great conversation with him, and we'll continue to keep that relationship very fresh and well coordinated. And we're here to ask for your recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
What do the commissioners have to say? Commissioner Bailey?
Mr. Chairman, my question, I think, is maybe directed to Charmaine. Can we start this permit a year later, or can we extend it a year? Or how do we need to get to this 2022 date without having these guys come back and sit in front of them? I like them.
Which we're happy to do.
I really like them. I really like you, but it's
Yeah.
okay.
No, I appreciate that.
If we could make that somehow, or some language in there that gives them a 2-year process, or start it at a later date and give them that year out in front. Is there something we can do there?
I'm not sure. I'm looking at the resolution right now, and hopefully we'll find something shortly.
Okay, good. I hope so.
And if it, is easier or straightforward for us to, get a 1-year permit, come back, apply for an extension, we're happy to do that. This is late-breaking news as of last week, and I just thought I'd bring it to this body's attention, and just wanted to be transparent there.
Mr. Chairman, Jason or Trish, can you,
Yes, so
how hard, well, let me ask this question. How hard is it to get an extension? Do they have to come in front of us, or can they do it through the staff?
no, typically what we've done, and you may remember, we did this on the Dynasolar solar farm that we did. And we just, going into it knowing that it wasn't going to be started for another year or two, we put that extension on there. So for instance, we would add a stipulation that says this conditional use permit is good up to, say, January of 2023, January 1st, 2023, so that we know going ahead that we were going to have 18 months or whatever the case may be of a gap. So it would just be an additional stipulation added to your, it'd be number 6.
Mr. Fisher, what was that date that they gave you?
We're not expecting a decision from the Wyoming Public Service Commission until December 15th of this year. And so that pushes construction out that we had contemplated starting, this summer into the next season.
So we're talking maybe like June of 2022 to start? Is that what you're thinking?
I would, because of all the seasonal restrictions that we have with game and fish and in sage grouse core area, that locks us out until July. And BLM likes to interpret that as mid-July, given our experience on the other portions of Gateway West. So it might be cleaner or safer, if I may recommend, to just, by the end of 2023 or 2022 or the start of 23, like Trish and Jason were mentioning. That would be very fine.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mitchell, any questions?
I just have one question, just for my own, edification on this. So that new power line that's being built, because look, you're updating one, is that primarily due to the wind energy? Like, is it more demand-based, or is it more supply-based, or a combination of both as to why there's another power line needed through there?
Right, and it's a combination of both. We, as a regulated utility, were required to do long-range planning and submit those plans that look out 10 and 20 years to the Wyoming Public Service Commission and our other 5 state agencies. And part of that process looks at what's the least cost resource and the least risk. And so there's quite a planning effort that is ongoing year-round that never stops, but it publishes a document that says we think that there's a pool in our interconnection queue of low-cost wind resources. There's some solar, and there's some other renewable pumped hydro storage type projects. So it's a combination of those plans that are looking at what's in the pipeline coming, and we need to have the transmission built to be able to deliver that to provide low-cost energy.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay. All right, I don't have any, I guess I do have a question, and this, I guess, would be for a combination of the two of you. The whole provision of number 6 that we're talking about, it pushing it back till January 1st of 2023, that would be made with the understanding that there's no significant change in routing or anything that we have in our hands here now, correct?
Right. The routing has really not changed for years. And, we don't, because we've done all of these required surveys for the BLM and the feds, we don't look to redo those. So I think we view the alignment as not changing.
Okay. Or for that matter, any other material, double the size or anything like that? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Do we need to go through that again for people in favor now that? Okay, all right. All right, so we've asked the audience as part of the public hearing, those that were in favor, we had none. Now we'll go through the process of asking if there's any in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to conditional use permit 20-12. Please come to the table, provide us your name and address, and we'll follow through with the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to? Yes, sir.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name's Robert Kirkwood. I reside at 6258 South Darling, Casper, Wyoming. Me and my wife Celia M. Kirkwood own what's referred to as the Upper Hat Six Ranch, which constitutes parcels 10151, 10152, 10227, all of which will be impacted by this power line. I don't know so much as I'm talking in opposition to it. I guess I'm talking more to try to obtain more information. We'd been contacted several times back in October of 19 and again in September of 2020 by a Mark Johnson, an agent for Rocky Mountain Power. In both cases, he wanted access to our property for the surveys, which we talked about, which we gave him in both cases. And in both cases, we had conversations regarding asking for more information, which in both times I was told we would continue to get more, which we never did. At this point, the last go-around, I was promised a package of some kind of, okay, what's the compensation? What do I get out of this? I'm obviously going to, me and my wife are going to be impacted. We bought this. We've got a little impoundment there that we put together, which this appears to be going right over the top of. There's a lot of very large trees, 100-year-old trees that'll be cut down. I understand it's a 500-foot right-of-way. I have run into several surveyors, or one surveyor in particular that couldn't quite put me where this was going to happen. I guess my biggest complaint is that the contact, or they keep saying they're working with landowners. I happen to be one. About a quarter mile of this 1,000-mile deal will be impacting our property up there. I know that's a teeny part, but it's a big part. It's an big impact on ours, and I know my neighbors, it's a bigger impact for them. I do not think that they're working with surface owners, landowners. It does not appear to be real genuine. It's more, hey, if I can get on your land, I'll tell you anything, and then just sign off and let me on. The two instances, and anyway, I guess that's my comment on the process. I guess there'll be more hearings, and it sounds like we're delayed another year. This has been going on for a very long time, and it sounds like it's going to go on for a little longer. But I am disappointed with their ability to work with surface owners. And I realize we're a very small cog, and I realize that ultimately they can. I have little or no power, and their documentation specifically says, hey, we can take it however we want to, and I recognize that. I just am a little disappointed with their surface owner PR. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkwood. Any questions for Mr. Kirkwood?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kirkwood, it appears from the mapping that they're crossing what would be, let's just call the southeast corner of your tract.
Yes.
That's Converse County.
Yes, I realize that,
Okay.
but I'm speaking as an adjacent owner here in Natrona County, because we have an adjacent owner. We own Converse and Natrona County, so in both
I
places.
just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
that
and
it
I
has
apologize.
nothing to do with what we're going to do here tonight,
Okay, well,
except for your complaint about the contact with them. But in terms of where the line lays and where they need to go across,
I
that's
appreciate
not
that.
in Natrona County.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, anything?
I just have one question, so, and just because I'm new to the board, but I mean, he brings up issues that may be applicable to other people, property owners that are on the Natrona County side. And I guess what resolution or dispute resolution process is there if they feel like they were told one thing and then something changes, or I'm just have a question as to, how that's, because we can look through this and say the kind of the statements of facts are correct, but I guess trying to make sure that the process is honest and transparent and people's, proper interests are respected, I guess I just have a question of how that all is sorted out in this process. Or whether we even know. Or maybe the reps can address that. So. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, typically the way that's played out in the past is if we have an aggrieved property owner, we typically get them in contact with the applicant, and historically they've always been able to iron out their grievances before it gets before this body or during this body. As I look back through our presentation, to date, Natrona County Development Department has received no comments on the CUP. So that would indicate to at least staff leading up to this meeting tonight that there was no property owners that had a bad experience. Nobody came forward and said we had a bad experience. So we weren't, if we did know someone was having a bad experience, we would encourage the applicant to get a hold of that property owner and work with them. So that's historically how it's happened in the past. Mr. Kirkwood's brought up some good points here, and I'm sure Pacific Court's heard it, and they'll be visiting with Mr. Kirkwood shortly.
Typically, that would happen before this goes to the county commissioners, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkwood. So I believe I've asked the question twice, so for the third and last time, any wishing to speak in opposition to conditional use permit 20-2, please come forward. Yes. We got these masks on, it's hard to smile. I'm
I
smiling
know.
at you.
It's probably a good thing. Shelley McClary Trumbull of Banner Ranch Company. And I'm just going to say ditto to what Mr. Kirkwood has said. We have tried really hard to work with Pacific Corps and be partner with them, but there has been a great overreach of private property rights is our feeling. We have addressed them, and we have been working with Mark Johnson on a lot of those. However, my question is, where, I understand they might be wanting to access from the end of Hat 6 Road to get up to the Deer Creek Range, crosses a lot of our private ground and private road. And I'm hoping that there is some compensation in that. The part where it says that they'll put it back to its original maintenance, I don't quite understand that, if you're going to all of that work, and why it would be put back. This is going to be a big inconvenience for us in a lot of ways. That's one of our concerns. And that goes all the way up through Deer Creek Park. It's not all private, or are private, but you cross many other entities up there. And it affects a lot of landowners that aren't going right under the transmission line because that's their access to their homes too. And so that's a concern of mine. But I don't think that Pacific Power has done a very good job in communication. And I hope to see in this process that gets rectified, because it does impact our life and our business. I think that's all I have to say for now.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
Trumbull?
Trumbull.
It's McClary Trumbull.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Bailey, any questions for Ms. Trumbull? Commissioner Mitchell?
I don't have any questions, but it may be useful to have the representative kind of speak to all this.
It looks to me like they're covering their bases with state and BLM and Forest Service and the Game and Fish. I just don't think they're covering and put as much effort into the private landowner. That's my piece.
So thank you, Ms. Drummond. Any others wishing to speak in opposition? Mr. Fisher, would you like to come up and tell us what's the newest after having heard what we had tonight?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you very much. And, I greatly appreciate Mr. Kirkland and Ms. Trumbull coming forward and expressing their concerns and frustrations. And, I've thought about this an awful lot as we've been permitting our transmission lines for the last 13, 14 years. And it is a long journey. And the landowners have been on that journey with us this whole time. And I think there's a lot of frustration that's built up just because of the amount of time that it takes, and that to me is completely reasonable. And what we try and do, we have a very small Rocky Mountain Power right-of-way staff ourselves, and so we contract that work out, and we think we've got a very good contractor with Paragon Partners. And I've not had any negative reports of Mark Johnson, but I can appreciate the fact that the details and exactly where this line's going to go, exactly where on my property is it going to go, and where is the access road going to be. That doesn't get generated and put on a piece of paper per se until we get all the survey work done and we prepare legal exhibits. And that's the part that we're finishing up right now. And I was told yesterday that is supposed to be going out within the next week. So landowners should be getting that. And to the comments about whether we're working in good faith, we've got a long history of working in good faith with landowners, although some of these times it takes many years to get a project to fruition. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. And we haven't been as efficient as getting to the end game quick enough. And there's a number of reasons. I'm not going to make excuses for that here this evening. But, I can assure Mr. Kirkwood that we'll be in touch with him shortly. We'll have one of our company right-of-way agents in touch with him and, meet him on the property and tell him exactly where the line's going to be. In terms of the roads on the Banner Ranch, there's, there likely to be some good improvements on roads, on the private roads. And there's likely not a need to restore those when they're of benefit to the landowner. Those are the kind of details that we work out as we're executing the actual easement documents and coming to agreement on, what are the impacts that we're having? Are there things that we can do to, leave improvements in place? And we do that all the time. But on the public lands where the agencies have, road and travel plans and concerns for open access, we'll work with them. And there's coordination definitely with private landowners that get onto those lands. So it's, those discussions will continue on all the way up until, we get easement documents signed and we're ready to get approvals from all the state agencies and the feds that we've complied with our record of decision. And they've checked all of those boxes. But we've got a very long history of working in good faith with landowners. I have no doubt that we'll be able to come to a reasonable outcome here with the landowners in Natrona County. And I think our line does just clip Mr. Kirkwood's property in Natrona County. It's, you'd have to look at survey documents to figure out exactly where the county line is and where our line is. And that's the part that, is being finished right now. So I can assure you we'll be in touch and have more in-depth conversations, ahead of the January 5th Board of County Commission hearing.
Additional questions for Mr. Fisher? I guess I had a couple. First, I saw you hand your card to Mr. Kirkwood, but Ms. Trumbull, I don't know if she got a card yet.
I spoke with her ahead of the meeting. I'll be happy to give her my card as well.
Okay, all right. Another question I have is, this is a quasi-governmental project of some type, I would anticipate. So is there, I guess the term that I'm familiar with is eminent domain?
Right, and Pacific Corp and Rocky Mountain Power as a regulated utility, does have the authority for public purpose projects, which transmission lines, typically are deemed such. In the state of Wyoming, we don't have the right of eminent domain until we get our approval from the Wyoming Public Service Commission, and that's written into Wyoming state statute. So we've got those regulatory hurdles to clear before we can go out and utilize eminent domain if necessary.
Could you explain that to us a little bit? Is it, you give your best effort at trying to negotiate, and if that doesn't go anywhere and your route can't change, then
Right.
it goes into the eminent domain?
Right, and
Inspector?
that's, that's a legal proceeding. It's a complaint that's filed in district court. And, we have to put a deposit down, at that point in time with the court on what the fair market value is. And we're out there to, reach a reasonable deal with the landowners. And we start with where's fair market value? And then have discussions on what's on the ground and how does that impact that, and what's our project do to that value. So that's all part of the discussion. And then there's additional state statutes that, prevent us from, making a lowball effort. If we were to give a lowball valuation and take that to district court and a jury or the judge determined that that wasn't fair market value, we'd be on the hook for damages and paying the other side's legal fees. So, there's incentives for us. We've been in business for well over 115 years, and we plan to stick around for the foreseeable future. And one other point with Mr. Kirkwood, I just recalled, he mentioned a 500-foot right-of-way. We need a 125-foot right-of-way for each of these transmission lines.
Okay. All right. Anything else from Mr. Fisher? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so,
I have an update.
yes,
Okay. I was able to find the section that I was looking for, and it's in Chapter 11 of the zoning resolution, Section 2C. And at the very end, it says unequivocally, a conditional use permit shall become void 1 year after it was granted unless use is made thereof. And I didn't see anything that said we can give you an extension. We can look into what happened with Dyna Solar and see if it would apply here or if it was just for solar. I think we didn't have a lot of rules regarding solar when that one was coming in. And also, since it doesn't seem like there's a rush, it doesn't make sense to have that potential problem hanging out there for no benefit.
what do you, potential problem, what potential problem?
That it would become void. Like to pass it, it becomes void, they have to do it again, but.
Mr. Chairman, it doesn't say we can't do it either, though, does it?
Well, you can grant it, but what it says is a conditional use permit shall become void 1 year after it was granted unless they used it. So it shall become void.
And
What would you consider as use, surveying?
I don't know.
There's some gaps in there then, if it is,
It doesn't specify how,
what the use is.
yeah.
I mean, that's part of the use to me, is you gotta figure out where you're going and survey and do all those other things to get to the point of that. So, so there's still a question, at least there's a question in my mind of that.
And hopefully we're not going through this exercise tonight, just in a futile effort and then have to turn around and do it again. in a
Yeah,
year.
that's my part, we know what's going on. They got delayed. Well, this is probably discussion. You need to close the public hearing and then.
Mr. Chairman,
Let's hear
if I may,
Mr. Fisher first.
comment on the attorney's comments, and Commissioner Bailey, you're, I think, spot on. And I think back to the way BLM looks at our use of their right-of-way. You know, we were granted the right-of-way in 2013, and they've got rules that, you know, say they can deem your use of your right-of-way grant abandoned if you don't use it. But they clearly articulate that use of the right-of-way in their mind is conducting surveys, continuing the development of the project, and that's the interpretation I would, I would think that Natrona County could stand on to, issue a longer-term permit or state when the construction might start. But it is of value for us to have certainty on our local permits, and that's something that the Wyoming Public Service Commission will be asking me when I'm on the stand, what's the status of your permits, and they expect us to have those in hand. And so it's something where I respectfully request, this commission's recommendation of approval to the board, and I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that we can grant an extension, or let me rephrase that. We have granted extensions on CUPs, and why couldn't we grant the extension right on our motion? And I'm coming back to Hal's statement that says, why are we going to see this again if we know they've got put off for a year? This was all set, and then a week ago they get notice they get pushed out a year. Why don't we just extend it a year? Or does it say that we can start it at a point in the future? It doesn't say.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't, you grant it, the clock starts running. When 1 year elapses, this says it's void unless they were doing something. I'm not saying they're not doing anything.
No, I understand. The use is the question of what is use. But if we're going to give them an extension at the end of a year, why not do it now?
So it sounds to me like it's something that's actually higher than this Planning and Zoning Commission. It's something that's going to have to be worked out before it goes to the county commissioners. We can have our recommendation, but ultimately they're going to have to make the decision on that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Declare the public hearing closed. Gentlemen, for discussion. Anything for discussion, I should
We've
ask.
kind of had the discussion, maybe. I don't know. It's my feeling that, were you going to say something on the extensions?
Hal caught what I was gonna say and instead of farming, so I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay.
If we're gonna, if they can extend it, I don't know why we can't extend it right when we're starting, and we can hang our hat if we want to on use. And if we follow the BLM or the Forest Service or whatever and use of the easement, part of that use has to be survey. We got to know where it's going. Part of the use is going to be going to the landowners and getting those easements worked out with them. Talking about the roads, if they want the roads left in an upgraded position. I mean, that's all things that, to me, are part of the use of the CUP from us. And whatever we want to do, I guess we could make number 6 and say we grant them a year extension when they come to us, or we'd be all okay if somebody else didn't change the deal on them. Was it the siting council or somebody that changed your? Public service. Yeah. We've got no control over those idiots in Cheyenne.
So ultimately, we recommend, and the commissioners will make the decision. All right, the chair would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to recommend approval of CUP 20-12 by the Board of County Commissioners, including findings of fact as presented by staff, with the proposed 5 conditions presented by staff, and let's time out my motion. I'm trying to figure out language to get in there to give them a break on not having to come back to us. I mean, how can I say that?
Perhaps with
With an
adding number 6, with the added provision that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends extension of the conditional use permit recommendation to January 1st, 2023.
Okay, good. Did you get that down? That's my motion.
Can we restate the motion?
Is that a second?
I'll second. Just, can I put some discussion in at this point?
Certainly.
So what I would kind of recommend too is that, and I don't know whether this is something we recommend or whether but that there be a meeting between the power company and the people who have talked so far, preferably before the county commissioners meet. Because, when I look at this is that, there's some legal issues here as to this conditional use permit, can we extend it? If the landowners are happy with the project, then we don't have to worry about it going to court. But if the landowners aren't happy, and then there could be, and you're an attorney, there could be, things, somebody could bring a court, say we didn't do this right, delay it, goes to court, now you go to, but I think it'd be real important to meet with the landowners and make sure that they're happy with it. Because if they're happy with it, then you won't have any problems. And I would just make a recommendation that they get together and they get it sorted out before the next county commissioners meeting. So I don't know if that's an amendment to the motion, or whether we can recommend that, or whether that happens anyway.
That's not our bailiwick. Ours are right there. There's 5 or 6 conditions that we have to talk about. That's about all we get.
But it would be helpful for the county commissioners who we are reporting to know that private landowner issues came up tonight, and the expectation is that Rocky Mountain Power will be in communications with anyone that calls and asks between now and the time of the commissioners meeting.
Mr. Chairman, they've got our minutes. They can read them. They should read them before their meeting.
Okay. Is that worthy of an amendment, or is that?
What do you want to add to them? Oh, the people make the property owners? Is that like
The applicant shall negotiate with the property owners in good faith.
It's more like a footnote.
Okay.
A motion or a footnote.
Mr. Chairman, that's not our bailiwick up here.
Okay.
All right, that's my feeling is, we look at the conditions and what staff has presented, and if there's not a problem with those, that's what we have to go on. Okay?
Okay.
I don't think we can dictate the people getting together. That's really up to them, and that's going to happen. He just got the surveys.
Okay. I still haven't heard a clear word on a second for the motion.
So just one more point on that is that, so we're kind of saying the attorney has said that the conditional use permit is only valid for a year, provided that it's used in that time period. So is the legal opinion that if they do surveying, that's considered part of it?
I'd have to research to see if there's anything that defines use. It seems like if they were doing surveying or much of anything, taking steps towards use, that would probably do it. Yeah.
So I would second based on your discussion. My only concern is that I think there's a legal issue there, and I think the county commissioner that should kind of be resolved for them when that goes up to, to have them review it, because it's kind of unclear to me still.
So Trish, we have a motion and a second. Are you good with that? Okay, calling the question. All in favor of conditional use permit 20-12, signify by saying aye.
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 Obviously none opposed. Conditional use permit 20-12 is approved and is recommended for approval by the Natrona County Commissioners. And I don't have the date on that. Do we have that?
January 5th.
January 5th? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, deep breath. Thank you all for coming out. All right, so next on the agenda is a request by Natrona County Development to update the 2016 Development Plan, Chapter 7, Natural Resource Plan as presented by DJ&A. The update was funded by the Federal Natural Resources Policy Account. So do we have a staff report?
I have a brief little speech before I turn you over to Dessa. You may recall a while back, we gave an update on some money that was given out to counties by the governor to update or create a natural resource plan. In 2016, Natrona County had actually redone their development plan. And in there was a small little section, Chapter 7, that had state and federal land use. That was taken from another county, and so when the governor came forward with this $50,000, we jumped on the opportunity to have somebody come in and really work on the Chapter 7. So that is where DJ&A comes in, and they have done a fabulous job. You'll see the big, yes, that big book right in front of you. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dessa, who's up on our screen, and she can tell you all about it. Hey, Dessa.
Hi, thank you very much, and thanks very much to the Planning Commission for having me here tonight. My name's Dessa Dale, and I'm the project manager and environmental planner representing DJ&A. We're a full-service environmental engineering, planning, and survey company. DJ&A, in collaboration with Natrona County Board of County Commissioners, developed this Natural Resource Management Plan, or NRMP, to serve as the basis for communicating and coordinating with the federal and state governmental agencies. And an effective NRMP considers the current condition of government-administered natural resources within the county. This is referred to in the plan as the resource assessments. It also covers the county's goals for the use, development, and protection for each resource, also considered as resource management objectives, and then also how the county desires to achieve these goals or the priorities. By adopting an NRMP, the county is ensuring that its concerns are meaningfully considered by federal and state government agencies in their decision-making process. So I wanted to go through and outline a little bit of how we worked through this process. And the first thing that we did is we reviewed Chapter 7 of the Natrona County Development Plan that was redone in 2016 to determine how it currently addressed the criteria outlined that was outlined in a memo presented by the governor in July 10th of 2019. What we found is that while the policy statements included in the Chapter 7 of the County Development Plan reflected Natrona County's character and principles, it did not explain the current state of the resources, which was something that was outlined as part of the criteria. And furthermore, the chapter did not break out the policy statements down into further general goals regarding the use, development, and protection of each resource or ways in which the county would achieve those goals. So after realizing the work that we needed to do, or the gap assessment between that criteria and the current existing plan, we also had a public process that needed to be met in the creation of this plan. And so the first thing we did was conduct 2 in-person public meetings in early February of 2020 to introduce the project and to solicit public input. We informed meeting attendees about the goals of the project, asked folks to complete a public survey that we put together for the commissioners, and also had open discussion on the concerns and issues that should be included in this new planning effort. We were also provided a list of federal and state agency stakeholders, which included Bureau of Reclamation, BLM, Wyoming State Forestry Division, Wyoming Game and Fish, and the Natrona County Conservation District. We worked on gathering input from both these federal and state agency stakeholders, both by direct contact, and also we provided them with an online planning survey since some folks were not available to sit down and discuss. And we asked a series of questions that regarded current issues and management concerns specific to that agency. And we received input from most of the agencies in that list. We also prepared and administered a public survey, like I'd mentioned before, to identify important natural resource issues associated with public lands within the county. Respondents were asked to describe how Natrona County's unique custom and culture and how or if this would impact future development and economic stability within the county. This is extremely important because part of the county's authority is in the health, safety, and welfare of their residents, and also knowing the socioeconomic conditions. So this is what we were also trying to establish. However, there were several attempts made by the county to encourage public and representative groups to participate, but we did have lower input in this, so participation was a little lower than we were hoping, but the responses that were given were very thoughtful and provided a lot of great insight to help guide us. So all of those combined efforts helped us in capturing issues, concerns, and areas that needed to be or should be considered within this plan. We summarized all results and summarized the results in Chapter 1 of this Natural Resource Management Plan and included it in entirety of Appendix B, since that's an easy way, there's an easy way to update that survey information if additional public input is needed in the future. After completing the draft plan, the public was given 30 days to review and comment on the document. Agency stakeholders also received an email notification of this comment period, and we directly asked for their input. We received input from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, which we considered and incorporated into the final that you see before you. And the Wyoming Game and Fish also reviewed the draft and provided comments. They actually stated that they did not have any additional comments because we considered and incorporated successfully all of their original comments on the preliminary draft document that we had provided them. Input from both agencies was highly valuable and enhanced this final project, and we did not receive any input from the general public during that public comment period. So a couple highlights of things that are in this plan. Each resource area, we compiled and evaluated currently publicly available data to succinctly describe the current conditions within the county. These resource assessments are really a great benefit for future collaboration efforts with federal and state agencies, as the county will have a firm understanding of the current conditions of a variety of resource areas. And furthermore, by explaining how resources on public lands are used, these assessments help convey their importance to the county. We also produced 18 maps to supplement these resource assessments, and these maps can be used for a variety of resources and purposes and are an excellent way of getting a snapshot of the current condition. Part of this deliverable at the end of this process will provide a data library to the county with all of the geospatial data gathered and digital versions of all the maps, so it can be used for further planning. Resource management objectives are meant to broadly describe the county's goals for the use, development, and protection of each resource area, and priorities are meant to specify how the county seeks to achieve these objectives. As noted above, Chapter 7 of the County Development Plan expressed the county's intentions for its natural resources, both broadly and in specific terms, and these policy statements were, for the most part, intermixed. We first extracted those policies statements from the County Development Plan. We sorted them into the appropriate resource areas based on the template that was provided to us from the governor's office. We did modify that template slightly to make sure that we were addressing some of the specific issues or concerns that were brought up both from public input and from the commissioners. And we also further modified and refined those resource management objectives and priorities. We also took into consideration neighboring resource management plans to make sure that we were accurately comparing and considering things that neighboring counties were doing for some of those similar issues. So all of the language of the objectives and priorities were reviewed to ensure that they promote a tone of collaboration with the federal and state agencies while maintaining a strong position with the county. So in conclusion, I feel like this has been personally a fun project for me to work on, and really hope that feel that this effort has included very adequate public and agency stakeholder participation and review, and it's truly a good assessment of the current conditions of federal and state administered resources within Natrona County, and now updated resource management objectives and priorities that can be used for future planning efforts. Are there any questions or concerns?
Commissioners, there's a lot of information there.
Mr. Chairman,
It is.
my only comment is we got this tonight. You know, we're going to rely on staff to tell us that they like it or not. Haven't had a chance to look at it, except as I thumb through here, which I have a couple of problems with their statements already, but that's my personal feelings and not something maybe that the county is concerned with. You know, one of my concerns is your global warming statements, and I'm not a big fan of that theory. You know, 200,000 years ago, the average Earth temperature is what it is today, and in between there, we've had a couple of ice ages. So we're scheduled, and about every 200,000 years, in the last map the last graph that I saw, we were about this temperature, and then it dips down. So I'm not, you know, that's my personal thinking on. I understand the government side of it and all the BS that they go through, but I don't know that those are as big concerns as everybody makes out them to be. But other than that, what can we do? It'll take me 2 weeks to go through this and find something I don't like. If the staff likes it, you know, let's get going.
So a question I have is, does this go to the county commissioners in January also, or is this for like a first, number one, is this considered a final draft, or is it?
That is the final that's up for adoption, and will be going to the Board of County Commissioners on January 5th.
Okay, so you're asking for an approval
Yes.
tonight? Sure wish we'd had something to look at before we had a chance to approve 200 pages of stuff. Probably 400 pages.
Yeah, and I can tell you, just from my personal dealings with it and going through this process, we've worked with DESA and the folks at DJ&A. They've taken this to, like she said, all the public agencies, and she got more of a response than we did when we did it by ourselves. So reading it and looking through the documentation that was put into that it's thorough, it's supportive, it does what it's supposed to do as far as opens that door between us and federal and state agencies. It's gone through several revisions and stuff. So I staff feels comfortable with this document, and it's a large improvement on what we have now.
Mr. Chairman, staff, both of you, it's something we need. This is a professional outfit that does this type of stuff. And if we need this, then are you ready for a motion?
First, I'd ask a question. What are the implications if we push it a month, if we table it, push it a month, and have the commissioners consider it in February instead of January?
You can table it, and we can put it back on the agenda.
The problem I have is that's a huge deal, and I can just barely get through based on trying to listen to what DESA has to say and what staff has to say. I literally hadn't gotten past that first page.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are you going to understand this whole thing?
I'll have a good idea, I'm sure. You'd be
I'm going to
surprised.
take staff's recommendation and the professionals and say, we need this in our planning and zoning book, chapter 7.
I'm not
in our
questioning that
plan.
we need it. I'm
And
just
I don't know that reading it for a month is going to change our need. And from what staff has said, they've been through this many times. And about the only thing we're going to pick up is any grammatical errors, and I'm sure there's spelling, and I'm sure that's been taken care of. So I would say forge ahead.
So my original question was, if we push it back a month, what are the implications there?
So there wouldn't be any issues with tabling it. The only thing I would recommend is our January Planning and Commission agenda is like full. We've got 6 items on there, I think, as of right now. I would also have to send out re-notifications, put it in the paper again to meet statutory requirement. Well, if it's tabled, we don't. So we would be okay there. So I would recommend possibly doing February for planning commission meeting.
So there's nothing we're going to miss out on if we don't act on this tonight.
No.
I mean, in my business, when I guarantee you, I would understand the big.
I understand that, and that was my business of reading stuff, but when it's been done through the staff, as many times as they say it's been through staff, what are you gonna change? Something that's done by a professional company that does this, that's looked at everything, that has got the stuff we need to deal with the federal and state government as far as the county is concerned. You know, if you find a problem in it, take it home and take 2 months, and if you find a problem, we'll amend it. We'll get it off the table, and
Mr. Bailey, I appreciate your opinion. I guess I have to ask the question, what good are we here if we just see something like this and just say, okay, good?
what good are they if we can't trust the staff?
Well, I'm not saying I don't trust them, but I want to be
Well,
familiar
you
with
just
this.
asked the same question to me. What good is it, what good are they if we can't rely on them? Say we need this, you know, our other one was what, 3 pages long? Chapter 7? It didn't work. This is gonna work better. In 2 months, if you wanna change the whole thing, bring it back.
Charmaine, you had something?
Let's see if there's a second with the motion.
Okay. All right, so we finished with discussion? Is there a motion? Mm-hmm.
So personally, I kind of agree with you. I think if, the only time I'm going to look through this is if it's on the agenda. I don't know that it's going to change anything, but I do think, you know, if it goes to the county commissioners, there's kind of assumption that we've kind of looked through it and we kind of understand what we're doing. Now, whether I'm going to look through this and change anything, probably not, but I do think from a processing standpoint, that's kind of our, you know, purview, I think, is to look through stuff, at least in some measured way, and make a recommendation on it. That would be my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion. You guys can vote me down. That's not a problem. I move approval of the 2016 Development Plan, Chapter 7, plan as presented by DJ&A as an update.
Matt, are you going to offer a second on that? Okay. So I got a motion that's going to die for lack of a second. All right.
I would move that we move it to the February if there's no, downside to that, because and that would be my motion.
So question, when you table something, can you skip a meeting?
Oh, sure,
You can?
yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so we have a, is that a motion to table?
Motion to table.
Is there a second? May I second? I second. All in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, by 2-1 margin, the tablers prevail. So we'll look at that, look at it again, as you suggest, in February. Okay?
As you guys review it, thanks very much. Any input or thoughts that you guys have, please let us know and just make the document better. So thank you for taking the time to review it.
Dessa, thank you for your very well done narration of what you provided us here. And please understand, at least on my part, all indications are that this is a really well done report. As you've heard, I for one would be more comfortable taking a little bit of time to review it.
I completely understand and really appreciate you taking the time to do that. So thank you
Yes.
very much.
Yes. All right. No one's here, so there's no public comment. Anything else from staff for tonight? So we're here at the end of the year. Typically, we would have a schedule for the next year, and I'm assuming you guys are putting that together and going to forward that to us.
I do have a meeting schedule ready for 2021, and it is going to be in your January packet for approval.
Okay. All right. So just so that, got it here. We've got a January 12th. Does that sound correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other business for the commission tonight? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?